Hello and welcome to tonight's Get in Tune. I'm Michael Gracia, and I have a really great show planned for tonight. Um, this is someone who I've literally read his book on how to storyboard. He's been in the industry for 30 plus years. I'm not going to do any more talking about him right now. Let's just bring him out because he's had a great career. He's still has a great career, and I just want to start talking to him. So here is Mark Simon. Hello, Mark.
Hi,
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, me too. And before we get into it, let's just throw up your contact info so people can find you. You got Mark Simon Books, which is all about your books.
Yep,
You got the next one, storyboards-east.com, which is, I assume, your storyboard business.
yep,
And then your LinkedIn so people can get in touch with you.
yep. That's the
So,
best way.
yes. Um, so let's just get started with a little um, basic information. What got you into art and wanting to pursue an art career?
Uh, there was nothing else I ever wanted to do. I've always been an artist. I was one of those kids that every test paper had cartoons in the margins. Um, I drew for the high school yearbook. I was the college cartoonist. Uh, I had started my first ad agency when I was in high school.
Wow.
I was working at an advertising agency called Alter Advertising in Houston, but they were too slow. They didn't get back to me with quotes for the clients I was bringing in. So, but I watched what he did in the office. I'd sit in his office, the owner, and saw, wow, I could do that. So I did. And so I just built up my clientele, worked all through college doing that. Um, I actually had my first business when I was 12. I was a competitive skateboarder,
Really?
and I had my own line of skateboards, and I sold them to Schwinn. So Schwinn was my distributor.
Wow.
So it was pretty heady,
Yeah, you
being a
started
12-year-old
young.
like that. Oh yeah, yeah.
I thought I started in the industry at 18. I thought I was young going in there, but wow, you you have a few extra years there on me, which is great. So we got a couple of comments. Hold on, we got Carl Kohler, who is a regular watcher. Hello, Carl. And from Animate for the Celibate Productions, Mark is amazing talents. Thanks for interviewing him.
Hey, Rick. Yeah, Rick Solomon, good friend of mine. Yeah.
And you are very welcome. I've been looking forward to this one. So you started obviously at a young age. Did you go to college to pursue art, or?
I did, yeah. I went to SFA, Stephen F. Austin in East Texas, and because I was raised mostly in Houston, I've kind of lived all over north, south, east, and west in the country.
Okay.
But Houston was my formative teen years, and I got a theater scholarship, to SFA. So that's where I went, and I got a double major of art and business because I wanted to make money as an artist. So, and it was really helpful.
That's great. And just what were some of your inspirations as a kid that you looked at that said, I have to do art? You know?
My first inspiration was daily comic strips.
Okay.
I'm fanatic about daily comic strips. I was always drawing and creating my own. I did eventually get syndicated at one point. It didn't last very long, so my syndicate folded. But at least I hit the goal. And then it was comic books. I was a giant comic book fan. I had over 7,000 comics.
Wow.
My parents, even when I was like 13 years old, would just drop me off for a weekend at a comic book convention. They'd rent me a hotel room and just leave me there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It was so fun. So, I got to know, a bunch of the artists, and I would just hang out and pepper them with questions till they kicked me out. So it was always comics and cartoons. Even though I wasn't as good as an artist as those guys. And I'm also colorblind, which a lot of people don't know.
So am I.
Yeah. So I finally found the perfect thing, black and white production storyboards. I don't have to worry about it. And it pays really well. So, so that was my early inspiration. Then when I discovered the art of Disney, that book blew my mind on what you can do, and that you can make money in animation. So I studied that, and then in fact, when I was in college, we had my professor created his own computer-controlled flatbed on the camera stand. Now that doesn't sound that fancy, except this was back in the early 1980s, which those things didn't exist. He created it himself. So I had full run of it because no one else knew how to use it, and no one else was really into animation in the film department. So I went in and I took over the room with all of that, and then I designed and built a multiplane system onto it based on what I had read about the making of Peter Pan. So, here I am doing these multiplane animations in college and really having such a great time with it.
Wow. That's amazing that you were able to kind of just have that run and experience and experiment with all that stuff. Not many people get a chance like that.
Yeah, I was really lucky that that my film professor was so advanced on a lot of things he was creating and putting together. And anyone who had the passion for it, he was like, here, it's yours, go. Just use it for whatever you want. And I mean, because there were other things in that room as well, but generally by about 6 o'clock, all the classes were done. So I'd go in about 6:30 or 7, and I'd stay till 5 in the morning.
Okay.
So, I would just spend my nights there. It was awesome.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
A comment. Joe Ryan says hello to me. I'm tuning in for this exciting interview. I told you backstage, Joe Ryan is a regular watcher, big fan, graduate from the Kubert School, and is just starting his career now. So he's looking forward to hearing all the information that you have to give. But before we go, just because he is a guy learning, you mentioned that to me backstage that you have some LinkedIn Learning classes that you've.
Yep. I've got quite a few on there, but what most people know me from on there, because I'm called the godfather of storyboarding. I produced a bunch of storyboarding courses on there. So on how to use Storyboard Pro in particular, and I've got a few more I'm producing right now. But yeah, so I've got storyboarding, voiceover, using Character Animator, and how to set up all these quick little speed buttons on your Wacom remotes. I've got a whole course just on how to do that.
That's fantastic. So Joe, and anybody just watching, sign up for your LinkedIn Learning so you can get those great videos.
Yeah, and if anyone's in school, it's free because virtually every school is connected to it.
I didn't realize. I haven't been in the teaching scene for about 3 or 4 years, so I forgot that they did offer that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, that is great. I do remember. I think it was 2017. I had like an educational thing for LinkedIn Learning to help with my students and play videos and stuff.
Well, look, and I can give anyone a free month, so you can just hit me up on LinkedIn, and I'll send you a link for a free month.
That's fantastic.
If anyone wants to go through the stuff, it won't cost you anything.
That's fantastic. So, so it's interesting you say you're colorblind, because I'm colorblind as well, and you went towards black and white. Actually, just so you know, I'm more what they call shade blind. I see colors, but when they start blending, I can't tell them apart. So, like, I can see all pure colors, but I can't see.
And for me, it's pastel. I can see color, like this blue behind me. That's easy, and the kind of yellowish green on that wig I can see. But it's red transition to green. Okay. I have a problem with, and pastels all look just gray or white to me. If it's a really soft color, I can't see it at all.
No, and that's interesting because I do a lot of black and white work myself, and it's because of my color blindness. So you said you found color. I'm sorry, not colorblind, but black and white storyboarding.
Oh yeah.
When did you get into storyboarding? Like how long ago? How long you been doing storyboarding for as a career?
I've been doing storyboarding full time for over 30 years now. And when I graduated college, I thought Hollywood sounds cool. I'd been studying film, and so I just moved, and literally 2 weeks after graduation, I bought a house when I was in college. So I sold the house and just moved out to LA and started as a construction coordinator. And then I became an art director on my first movie. And it was fun because, my dad owned a custom home building company. So while I was doing marketing and advertising, I was also running his business. So I ran all the crews. I was the superintendent of the building company. Okay. So when I got out to Hollywood, I knew how to design and build anything. And because I was on a theater scholarship in college, I had that aspect of it, and then I studied film. So between all of that, I knew I could swing a hammer and get in through design, which I did. It was really quick and easy.
Mhm.
And it was fun doing all that. But while I was working on these movies, I would see these storyboards come across my desk, and I wasn't drawing as much. I was designing, but I wasn't drawing, and I missed it a lot.
Yeah.
So I figured, well, I want to give this a shot. And at the time, the biggest storyboarding agency in the world out in LA was Storyboards Inc. So I drove down to their offices, and I just walked in and introduced myself to one of the agents that was sitting there, showed him my stuff. He said everything was wrong. It was just horrible. Literally, I did everything wrong you could possibly do in storyboarding. So I asked him 1,000 questions. He gave me some samples. I said, come back anytime. So I was back a week later. And he said, well, this is better, but do this, this, and this. I was back a week later. And I just, literally, every week I would show up with new samples until I either got it or he get tired of me, one or the other, because then he started placing me. And I landed a Honda commercial, and that kind of set me off. And I was also designing a show for HBO at the time called First and 10, starring O.J. Simpson.
Okay.
And I went to, once I had a couple credits, I went to him and told him, look, I'm here anyway. Here's some samples of my storyboard work. I want to do storyboards for the show since I'm here. And a week later, he called me, said, we've got a script. We need some help. And hired me to do the storyboarding on top of what he was paying me anyway. So it was awesome. And that was great. But then we decided to move to Orlando because the big earthquake hit San Francisco, freaked my fiance out. So we moved to Orlando, and it was easier to get art direction jobs than storyboarding jobs on the move because all prep was done in LA.
Yeah.
So I became the second art director at Nickelodeon when they opened up their studios in Orlando. And I did that until Spielberg came into town. And he brought Sequest, if you remember that old TV series about the futuristic submarine.
Yep.
So when he came in, I thought, okay, science fiction, biggest show on TV at the time, biggest budget of any show on TV, and Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
So 15 minutes later, I was their story art. It literally took me 15 minutes to land the gig.
That is amazing.
And that was when I went full-time storyboarding, when I was working with Spielberg.
That is amazing. So, wow, that was a good show. I enjoyed that show.
I loved it. Yeah, it was awesome.
It was. I'm a big sci-fi fantasy geek, so any of that stuff I've watched growing up. We got from Animate for the Cell of It production. You said that was your friend. What's his name again? Rick?
Yeah, Rick Solomon.
This way, I don't have to keep saying that title. Rick says your book Thriving Artist is also a great read, and we're going to get to his books in a bit. But I haven't read that one, but that is on the list of when I was doing the research for it. Because like I said, I own your storyboarding book. And I was looking at your other books, and that was an interesting one for me. And then Carl Kohler asked if storyboarding for animation only, but when you mentioned Sequest, I guess his question was answered.
Well, let me tell you this, Carl. Probably 90% or more of what I do is live action storyboarding. Right now, except for the COVID crisis, but put that aside, the shows that I've been working on are The Walking Dead, Black Lightning, Creep Show, Doom Patrol, Dynasty, Council of Dads, Flight Attendant. I can't even remember all of them. It's a whole bunch. Yeah. I literally overlap, and I'm every week I'm doing multiple shows.
Let me. How is having a schedule like that, keeping the stories separate and not getting confused on what you're drawing, since you're multiple storyboarding a week? Is that difficult for you, or is it something?
It's not for me. I mean, it's like my entire life I've been running multiple things. I've always run a business, so I can always keep my head into multiple things at the same time. So it's never, I've never even thought about it being an issue.
And when you draw for any of these shows, do you ever draw kind of like the way the actors look, or like are you on model with them, or you just say this is just a generic image of what's going to happen?
I like to draw them just like the actors. Part of it depends on what my deadline is. So if I've got enough time to make them look really cool and inspirational, it's going to look exactly like the actors. I I don't always have that kind of time.
Yeah.
So, if I can get away with doing 40 drawings a day, yeah, it's going to look just like them. But if I'm doing 90 to 100, nah, they're going to be pretty rough. But I like doing it. I mean, so I do a mix. I mean, sometimes I'm just sketching, other times I'm doing much tighter artwork.
Okay. I'm sorry, my question just flew out of my head for a second. Let me look at my list here. Oh, so with the you said 90% of your stuff is live action.
Yeah.
What kind of, do you have a preference on what you like the story? Like you said, you do Stranger Things and Walking Dead, where it's kind of fantasy-ish, or you do something Dynasty, which is a little more drama-ish. What kind of stuff is your kind of favorite to draw?
Really, anything where I can really dig in on the story. I mean, look, doing action is always fun. I love finding the humor in things, but no matter what it is I'm doing, I'm always looking for how can I visually tell the story where if you turn off the audio, you still know what's happening. Everything I do is about story. Every book I write it as a story. So I mean, it's literally the core of everything I do. So for instance, after my storyboard book, the 3rd edition of that came out, my publisher said, we want you to write a book on producing animation. And I said, but there's a lot of great books on producing animation. What do I have to add? And they said, well, we want you to do it because your books are selling really well. And I said, I'll do it if I can figure out how to do it in a way that no one's ever done. And I was just racking my brain. I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized that all the books kind of jump all over the place with animation. Here's how you do this, here's how you do that, but not producing from beginning to end. Literally nothing existed.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, if I can do it literally from concept through delivery, and I'll show how to do every step of it, I'll write the book, because that's the story of a production. That made sense to me. And so my book, it's a long title, Producing Independent 2D Character Animation is the name of it. I don't even think it's in print now, because that came out a long time ago. But it was the story. Then I wrote a book on resumes called Your Resume Sucks. And we wrote that as a story of a young man breaking into a field, and his father's friends are mentoring him through the process. And each one has perfected a certain part of the resume. So we did it as a story, because who wants to read about how to do a resume? But if you make it entertaining, you'll retain more.
Yeah. We have a question here from Joe Ryan. He says, I have a question for you, Mark Simon. Currently out of college, and what is the industry currently looking for in portfolio or samples for storyboard in today's current standard for Hollywood? Any feedback would be most appreciated. Thanks.
For the most part, what they're looking for now is the same as they looked for 50 years ago. That you understand camera, lens, visual storytelling, how not to cross the line of action. It's the first thing I look at is if someone crossed the line of action or not. That tells me if you're going to be able to be a good story artist. So what we want to see are short sequences. Don't make me flip through a whole bunch of things. Don't make it individual panels. I need to be able to glance at an entire sequence and see how your story flows. One thing that has changed is the use of software. In particular, if you're working in animation, you have to be using Storyboard Pro. If you want to work from my studio, even in live action, you have to use Storyboard Pro. It's part of our workflow. It saves us so much time, and my clients expect a certain type of delivery that you can't do in any other way. It's not possible to deliver what I deliver with any other software. In animation, it's the industry standard, so you do have to know it. So, and you can get a free short-term version, or I guess one of the versions limits how long your sequences can be. So,
I have the software myself. Since I bought it, I just learned it. I haven't had a chance to do any real storyboards to try to get work with it, but I bought it to really sit down and learn the software. And it's a really fun software once you get accustomed to it.
Oh, I enjoy storyboarding even more because of it. There's so many aspects to it that make my life easier, and I can see everything come together, and I can hit play at any moment in the animatic roles. It literally is more exciting to do.
Yeah, it's fun. And doesn't that, and I haven't done this yet, but can't you transfer that into Toon Boom Harmony so that you can base your animations off that? So it just
it's really amazing. So it literally, when you import a storyboard profile into Harmony,
Mhm.
it will set up each individual scene
Mhm.
in animation. It'll set up the length. It'll put the keyframes in. It'll bring in that clip of the audio, and it'll lay your storyboard in as the layout in the background.
Wow.
And
That's
yeah,
amazing.
so it's unbelievable. So it cuts out so many potential problems.
Yeah. Wow. That is because like I said, I haven't done it yet. I'm in the process of learning Harmony myself right now. That's a lot more of a learning curve than Storyboard Pro is for me.
Oh yeah, Storyboard Pro is quick and easy to learn.
Yeah. So you've been doing this for, like you said, 30 plus years. You've written a bunch of books.
Yep.
You want to tell us about some? Like, I know Rick mentioned The Thriving Artist. What's that book about?
Well, The Thriving Artist is actually a series of CDs that I'm not really selling many of those anymore, just because it's an older format and I just haven't had the time to reformat it. But The Thriving Artist came from a series of talks that I gave on how to succeed as an artist in any field.
Okay.
So it's inspirational, and it's also filled with a lot of marketing tips on both how to get started as an artist and then how to make money as an artist.
Since you said they're kind of old, is the information in there need to be updated at all, or you think good information in there?
It's still good. I'm just not replicating the CDs anymore.
Okay.
So it's just a format that's old. One of these days I'll probably, get the digital file up online for somebody.
That sounds good. That's something like, because I do a lot of teaching. I work from, honestly, every age group. I do a lot of work with adults, a lot of work with kids, and all of them are always asking me, where can I find more information? So directing them to something like that, or learning more, that's something I would love to be able to direct people to. So your website will definitely be one of those places I tell them to go.
Yeah, there's a lot on there.
Yes, I know because you had also you have what was one of them I saw, something about how to pitch a show. Is that correct? Is that a book or what was that?
Well, I have a whole company, another company that does that. My wife is running it. It's called Sell Your TV Concept Now, and one of the things that we have is a do-it-yourself kit called the DIY TV Pitch Kit. It's a one-time fee. It's no monthly. It's all the updates we do. It's free for life, and it literally takes you from development, packaging, pitching, what to do afterwards, how to work the conferences, everything you need to know to successfully pitch something for whether it's film, TV, or streaming media.
Okay. Now you have a little poster behind you. I'm going to give you the screen for a second because you have a new book coming out, and that's the cover to the new book.
Yep. Yeah, it just came out. Yeah, Attacked.
So, can you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm really proud of this book. Attacked is actually my memoir. When I was in high school, I was bullied, like a lot of people are bullied. It seems like artists seem to be bullied more than a lot of others. But what made my story really interesting is about 30 people attacked me one night when I was in my car. And I ran over one of them to get away from them. And then a bunch of them followed me home and attacked my entire family in our front yard. So it got really serious. There were months of death threats, attacks, driving me off the road, attacking my friends, my whole family. We had to be armed at all times. We had private security watching our house. It was really bad. We had the cops involved and everything. And I ended up having the parents of my bullies arrested. I'm the first person in the country who held parents responsible for the actions of their kids in the court of law. So Attacked is about that entire thing. What started the bullying, what I went through, my nervous breakdown through it, and then the court trial and how I was able to get the guys kicked out of the school. And I was actually deputized for my work because I helped a lot of other families get through it too.
Wow. That's very, very interesting. I mean, I'm sorry to hear you were bullied. I know a lot of people who were creative as in their youth were bullied, and I've actually talked on a couple of my my shows about being bullied, but it's never been to that degree. So I'm very sorry you had to go through that.
Well, but here's what's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That bullying led directly to my career.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what had happened, because it really, and I talk about this in one of the epilogues of the book, along with advice on how to get over bullying and how to get over PTSD. So I was a math geek. I was a mathlete, and I competed in all that kind of stuff. I was one of the straight A students. I was in all the honors classes until the bullying happened. And they used to, threaten me at school, and I kind of lost my mind, and I couldn't concentrate. So here I am in advanced trig or calculus. I don't remember. It was one or the other. And I failed that fall semester when all the attacks were happening in the court trial. Here I go from a straight A student to I fail one of my best classes. So that left me an open hole during my day. And so I took another art class. So I had 2 art classes. And my art teacher, because she knew that I was also doing art on the side, I had my own business at that point. She said, look, the theater department needs help on doing posters and brochures. Why don't you take your second art class and just go down there and help them out? Oh, yeah, sounds great. So I went down and I would sit on the edge of the stage, and I'd be sketching up ideas and watching them design the sets. But because I was building homes, I knew more than they did about design and building.
Yeah.
So I kept throwing out suggestions and ideas, and sitting on the edge ended up with my being up on the stage, and up on the stage ended up then redesigning and building all the sets to end up then being backstage manager all in my first play. And I fell in love with theater, and I fell in love with a whole new group of people. These are the people who had no idea what I had been through. The rest of the school had literally made me a pariah because they were afraid of retribution. But the theater kids didn't know me. So all of a sudden I'm in this new clique, and I was accepted, and it was fun. And I was really gregarious. So it was awesome. And that led me to a summer theater camp, which is where I got my theater scholarship to go to college.
Okay.
And through that led me into the film department in college, which then led me to Hollywood. So, wow. Yep.
Then I guess you got to thank the bullies in some way.
I'm not thanking them for shit. I did it in spite of those assholes.
Yeah, I understand. That's one of the reasons I feel I got my gig at 18. Started early, is because I didn't do anything except draw. I had no other choice. What else was I going to do? So but yeah. So hold on, we got. Rick says his classes on storyboard pro is a must. It's what he uses to train his artists.
Awesome.
So that's great. And then he says, great cover on the book Attack. Looks like an interesting story. It's great that you guys help each other work through, that you help others work through bullying. And that's fantastic. I mean,
yeah, what's one of the things that's been really interesting, like I said, the book's been out for a little over a month, and I've been hearing from a lot of people who have also been bullied. But what's really interesting is some people who were bullied by the same guys reached out to me.
Really?
Yeah, and some of them didn't know my story, or some knew part of it, but not the whole thing till they read it. So they reached out to me, and my book is giving them a catharsis. And it's just mind blowing. But here's something else that's really cool. So about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the judge of my case reached out to me. He read the book and reached out and said, oh, yeah, I remember all of that. And he's 89 or something like that now, and long retired. But he read it. So he and I caught up. That was a trip.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. That is really, and it's on, and by the way, it's on Amazon if you guys didn't see on the sign. So go check that out.
Yeah, it's both in Kindle and in print. So however you prefer.
Yeah. But wow, no, but that is amazing. Even the judge, I'm curious how he even discovered it. When you're someone that age, you're not usually surfing Amazon or something.
No, well, I asked him, and like I said, a lot of people have been reaching out to me. So so a friend of mine did a post on a Facebook page that has to do with that area of Houston where I was raised, where the attacks happened, and a bunch of people started reading it. One of the people was a friend of the judge. And said, hey, you're in this book. So he and his wife went and got the book and read it, and then he reached out to me. So yeah, it was so cool.
That is really, yeah, that is really cool. I like hearing stuff like that. Um, so let's get back a little bit to storyboarding.
Yep.
When before you got into your TV series, you were doing commercial work. You said, like you were storyboarding commercials.
And I still storyboard a lot of commercials.
Okay.
I mean, that's you make more money with that. I just prefer longer stories.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, the daily rate on commercials is much higher. So that because at this point I've worked on over 5,000 productions, and the only way I've gotten that high is because I do so many commercials. So yeah, we always have that going at the same time. And those are fun because they're quick in, quick out.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you enjoy doing commercials? Because they're what, 30 seconds, a minute long, something like that sometimes, so even less.
Yeah, you're right. Some are less, some are only 15s. And it varies. I mean, some are industrial, some are on the web that are 2 or 3 minutes long. We do music videos. In fact, I just finished as the animation director, and I was the story artist on an animated music video for preschoolers called A Sparrow's Tale. So that is just now starting to hit the festival market. In fact, we just got our 4th official selection a couple days ago.
Okay. I'm just pulling up. I just want to pull up your IMDb page for a second.
It's big. There's a lot there.
I know. And the reason why I like to pull it up is because IMDb is also known for not being correct sometimes.
So, I think mine's pretty correct. I go in and edit mine to make sure that it's correct.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, let me just move this over, and I'm going to share the IMDb screen for a second.
All right.
This way also shows. Wow. And there we are. So let me move this over. I'm on the correct one.
Yep, that's all my stuff. Oh yeah, the Waterboy. A lot of people like it's funny how long ago that was, but so many people hit. And what's neat about the Waterboy is not only did I do the storyboarding, but I also designed all the team logos that are on the signs and banners and helmets, and I designed the tattoo that's on Henry Winkler's ass. So when he drops trow, there's a tattoo of Roy Orbison on his butt. That's my artwork.
It's funny because when I told my wife I was having you on and I was naming some of the stuff, she just started spewing quotes from it's one of her favorite films, The Waterboy. I didn't know that all that stuff you did. I got to let her know about that. But you also worked on the 3D Woody Woodpecker here. I don't call it, but more the live action.
It's funny with Woody. I storyboarded the movie, which is both live and CG, but I also storyboarded on the 2D animated series of Woody Woodpecker that now has over 100 million views on YouTube.
That's what I was going to say. I saw that you did the 2D as well.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking you were on, not that you were on, but you worked on Dexter.
Yep.
A lot of Dragon Tales, another very popular show, but they have you down as a creative consultant. What does that mean to people out there who don't know?
So on Dragon Tales, I was friends with one of the execs who worked on the show, and she needed help on the storyboarding, giving notes to the story artist. So basically, I was the storyboard supervisor. So that's a glorified term because of the way the studio, there are multiple studios in the network work. I couldn't have the title storyboard supervisor, so they called me the creative consultant.
Okay. We got one question here again from Rick, which is a good idea, and I believe he's talking about your Attacked book. How do you think you can get that into public schools reading list? Because honestly, I work in a public school every now and then, and bullying is a big topic. And is it geared, like, what age group would you say should be the youngest to read Attacked?
It depends on how people feel about cursing. The guys that were attacking me were unbelievably horrible and filthy with the way they threatened me and threatened my parents and other people. So and I was as absolutely true as I could be to the way everyone spoke. So yeah, I think it would be great for high schools. I think some schools would have a major problem with the dialogue in it. They shouldn't. because I know some of the books that that my kids' high school they had to read was about rape and incest and all these other things that for me are worse than cursing.
Yeah.
So, but how to get in, I don't know. I'm always open to suggestions. I've never tried doing that type of thing. So if anyone knows and wants to help out, reach out to me. Let's do it.
Yeah. No, that I think that's a great idea. I can't believe I didn't think of that to even as a question to even ask, because I do a lot of work with. Well, I spent some time taking workshops on art wellness and taught kids how to deal with it, emotional issues and things like that through artistic outlets. And
cool.
So I'm kind of like, big on those type of topics on how to handle other ways to handle bullying and learn about other people's experiences, so people can learn how to deal with stuff. And I think that is great here. Going back to your IMDb here, you got some director credits here. So I'm personally not familiar with any of these that are on here.
Some are shorts, some are short form TV series. Like Timmy's Lessons in Nature was on Nicktoons for a while.
Okay.
That was one that, in fact, I'm the first grand prize winner in the Nicktoons Film Festival. So that launched that, and it played on Comedy Central for a while too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but I do a lot of, some of those are pilots that I was hired to direct as well. But at this point, I've won well over 200 awards for those projects that I've written and directed.
Now, how did you get into directing? Was it because of your storyboard background, or?
Yeah.
That's what I figured,
Yeah, it was a lot of story artists become directors. I mean, going all the way back, Alfred Hitchcock was a storyboard artist first. Jim Cameron was a storyboard artist first. Joe Johnston was a storyboard artist first. And in 2D animation, the story artist is the visual director. So not in 3D and not in features, but in 2D TV they are. So.
Okay.
Generally, they're the people who move up into directing. So yeah.
And do you enjoy directing, or is it?
Oh yeah, love it. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, there's a couple live action series that are out here that I'm actually in talks with, getting in and directing on those as well.
Fantastic. So, I got to ask you, with all the stuff you say you're doing, how do you have time to do all this?
I love what I do. I mean, it's easy to be up real late and just keep working on things. The one benefit of this whole COVID shutdown, which shut down virtually everything I was working on except the animations, was I had time to finish my my memoir.
Yeah.
That had been gestating, and I'd been writing on that for years and years and years. But when all of a sudden I had a lot of extra time, I finished the book. I did a lot of marketing on it. I was working on my LinkedIn learning courses. It gave me time to do things I normally don't have time to do, because it's, I work 7 days a week. I take a couple hours off every night with my wife, and then I go back to work again late at night. She goes to sleep around 10:30, and I come back down to the studio and work a few more hours.
Wow. I mean, that's what you have to do, though. I mean, that was my life as a freelancer too. After dinner or whatever, watch a movie with my wife, I'm back in my studio and I'm working.
Yeah. Well, look, we love what we do. I mean, it's not like I have to. I want to. I can't wait to get back to my drawing table.
Yeah, it's like even for me. I mean, I say things like that. It's like I didn't choose a career in art. I had no choice.
Yeah.
It was I have to do it, and I'll do it in whatever way I can, whether I'm drawing a comic or I'm teaching something. As long as I'm doing something art-wise, I'm just the happiest I can be.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to be telling stories, like I said, whether it's writing my books or articles that I write, or storyboarding or writing scripts or directing. It's all telling a story. It's just different formats of telling it. I love it all. And I want to do it all. I don't want to be limited to any one thing or any two things.
Yeah.
I do a lot. Well, I see Rick just asked another good question.
You can bring that up. So,
yeah.
Do you find storyboarding comedy harder than drama?
Yes. Much. The hardest kind of production ever to do is comedy. And anyone who says otherwise has never done comedy. It's by far harder. Drama's the easiest to do, because if you have a long pause and dramatic music, it's dramatic.
Yeah.
But But comedy, to get someone to laugh,
Mhm.
that's hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard. But it's really fun and it's a great challenge. So,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
that's one of the great things. I work on comedies, I work on horror, I work on drama, I work on sci-fi.
yeah.
So, at this point, I've done so much of all of it. I just put on that hat and get into it. Um, but yeah, comedy is the hardest, and it's a lot of back and forth. I do more changes on my boards on
Mhm.
comedy than anything else because you keep playing with it. Should we be straight on? How long do what frame do you cut so that the joke lands properly?
Yeah.
How do you put people together? There's so many elements to it, including the delivery of the actors. So
Well, comedy it's always about timing. So it's how do you time everything properly? I mean, you go back into animation, you look at Tex Avery, you see his jokes coming a mile away, but you still laugh because the timing is so perfect. I mean,
yeah.
years doing that. I don't think there's a Tex Avery cartoon I don't laugh at, even though I know what's coming up.
Well, and he had the ability to really take things past any extreme you thought you would ever even reach. But his stuff is a great example of what I think makes great animation. Animation is best used when it does what live action can't. Now that's getting harder because we can do anything in live action these days.
Yeah.
But that's what, when I look at people who have proposals for ideas and they'll have an animation, it's like, why are you pitching this as an animation? I can just pick up a camera and get 3 actors and do it. You're not using animation for what animation is good for.
Yeah.
So,
well, let me ask, since we're on the topic of animation,
yeah.
There's the fans out there who give a big controversy. I've animated before, so I don't have a big opinion on this, because to me, if I make money, I make money. I'm going to animate. I love doing it. But how do you feel about the cartoons that are coming out these days? As of, like, they're more kind of stiff. This puppet animation that you see usually, you're not really seeing like the
All right, you
full.
cut out right in the middle of that. So ask me the question again.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. No, they like, a lot of fans say they don't like the cartoons today. They're very stiff or puppet animation. Like, there's not a lot of smooth animation. It's more like just listening to like a radio show and just having people stand there.
I'd say you need to look harder for animations, because I think some of the best animation I've ever seen is coming out now. Yeah, there's some low budget stuff that looks like shit, but there's also some of the best things ever. If you've ever looked at Rick and Morty,
I love the
quality of the animation on that is absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah.
Archer, that's a whole different style of 2D animation, and yeah, it's a puppet animation, but oh my God, is it gorgeous?
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, so there's a lot of phenomenal animated stuff out there.
Yeah, no, I agree. Both those 2 shows you just mentioned are 2 shows. Oh, actually, I kind of stopped watching Archer for whatever reason, but I need to get back into it, and I'm like 2 or 3 seasons behind. But it's you're right. It's beautiful to watch. The story is great. The humor.
Oh, it's so funny.
I think I laugh at that more than any cartoon. So. But yeah, no. So with storyboarding, since that's mostly what you do, where do you see any changes coming to the storyboarding industry? Like that whether new students should be taking into consideration, or just something that you're looking into that could change the way you work?
Well, the biggest thing that, and it's been happening for a while, is that the story artist is now creating the animatics. Some people think that's bad. I think it's the best thing in the world, because if we're doing our own timings, we're making our boards better. The ability to do an animatic in Storyboard Pro as you're drawing makes me a better storyboard artist, because I hit play and I see if the scene is working. I don't even understand why someone wouldn't want to do it. Some people say, well, you're not making as much. Well, yeah, I am, because I'm charging for the extra time. So, there's no excuses. You just do it. And you should. The editing and the timing and the motions and the use of the camera, you're learning more about the process. You're providing more for the production. It's faster for productions. It's just a bonus. And then because they like it so much, they're going to keep hiring you if you're the one bringing that to them. I've been fighting for a while on, and I get a lot of pushback from editors, is that we need to stay in one master software, one master file all the way through previs. But what happens is a lot of editors, once they start doing slight timings or shifting things around, they want to do it in either Premiere or, God forbid, they're using an Apple product. And I'm not anti-Apple at all. The reason I'm saying that is now I'm blanking on the name of the software, Final Cut.
Yeah.
Final Cut does not work in pre-production. And the reason it doesn't work is because we're always updating things.
Yeah.
And you can't replace footage in Final Cut.
Yeah.
Whereas Premiere, right click on it, replace footage. So if I'm updating the artwork and I haven't changed the timings in it, everything gets updated instantly in Premiere.
Yeah.
That's the way you need to be working. Or even better, have the editors work in our Storyboard profile. So any changes they do or notes they have, me as the artist, I get it. I make the adjustments, but all the notes are there. All the numbering is still there. It can be used in production better. As soon as an editor takes it out of Storyboard Pro into something else, it screws up every other aspect of pre-production, and it's only because they feel comfortable in one software.
Yeah.
Storyboard Pro is the same NLE, same editing as any other software, except it works in 5 other ways that you can't do in anything else.
Yeah.
So I've been instituting that more and more on the bigger productions where I've been head of story. And there's a big series right now I'm talking to them about implementing it. And when I was talking to the producers and director about it, one of the directors just came off of the show. I think it was Young Justice. And he said, yep, everything Mark said is exactly what happened when it went into editorial. And it screwed us up like crazy. So it's a relearning, not for artists, not for us.
Yeah.
But we need to push it. It's a relearning for other departments that they just have to get over their fight against it and realize it's better for production.
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting. Like I said, I haven't used Storyboard Pro professionally yet, but I know how to use it. When I was teaching storyboarding, we were doing it on paper and scanning it in and cutting it up, and I'd have my students do it in Premiere. Because I didn't like Final Cut Pro at all. Final Cut was great, like, what was it, 10, 15 years ago? But then they edited to look like, they changed it to act like iMovie almost. And
yeah,
like more advanced iMovie, and I didn't like that at all.
And look, there's some great things about it. What I'm saying is in previs, where we're constantly having to, whatever they're editing in, we're going to be updating the artwork, and it needs to be able to just be imported and keep their edits and whatever changes.
Yeah, no,
you just can't do it. It's not possible. Whereas Premiere, it's one click. Yeah. So, you just have to be smart about the software and see what's happening during that phase of production. Does the software support it or not? If not, just don't use it. It's very simple.
Yeah. No, I completely understood what you were saying. We have another question from Rick. Who are your top 5 directors you watch for inspiration?
All right. Well, there's 2 different ways that I'm gonna answer this. One, just for fun, the people that I love to watch, of course, Spielberg. I just love Spielberg. If I'm doing a big, just a huge production, David Lean, I'll look back at some of his work. I guess it kind of depends on what type of production I'm about to move into, and I'll study that. But the biggest thing for me is when I'm about to start working with a director, I look at their recent work. Okay. So by the time I sit down with them, when they say they want a close-up, I know what kind of close-up that director does. Is this a director that likes the center frames? Do they like the camera always moving? I will learn their style by looking at their things.
That's very
smart. I think that's really important because that shortcuts what I do. Because one of the biggest problems that I see with a lot of story artists is they think that a lot of story artists mistakenly think that they're creating all the shots and production should use what they come up with. And that's wrong. Yeah. Completely wrong. Our job is to visualize the director's vision and then enhance it whenever need be, as we're asked to. But if you're not getting the director's vision, you fail. Yeah. And I hear this from a lot of directors who hate working with story artists because they say, well, I use them because production brings them on, but I never use the boards. Why don't you? Well, it's never how I'm going to shoot it. Well, that's the storyboard artist failing. They don't, as soon as I'm done with like, oh my God, I had no idea. And when you look at, in fact, on YouTube, I've got a whole bunch of videos where you see my animatics cut to the finished piece, and it's exact. Why is it exact? Because I listen to the director. I study the style that they're doing, and I get into their head. I know what questions to ask. I've got 1,000 tricks up my sleeve on how to make sure what I'm putting down is what they want, what they see in their head. And some make it easy, like Greg Nicotero on Creepshow and The Walking Dead. Greg's a great artist, so he'll actually do a lot of thumbnails, and then I just make them usable for production. So I don't change because I know he's going to produce and direct what he sketched out. And then other times we talk it through, and I'm doing my thumbnails and getting approval literally as we're talking. But yeah, as a story artist, you need to get the director's vision.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. My professional storyboarding hasn't been anything since the early 2000s. A few independent films that I've done, but they were all new to the director, so it was hard to work. It was a lot of back and forth. Right. But I never even thought, since I haven't done storyboard years, watch the directors that you're storyboarding for. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's easy now. Everything's online. So,
Carl has a question about outside a tablet. What's the best way to import animation, drawing, scanning, or camera? I'm going to say scanning. I think most people would agree, right?
Yeah, unless you're just doing a pencil test, then the camera's faster. But why wouldn't you use a tablet? I mean, it's just, I'm going to go right back to just draw digitally, and then everything. Again, you just click a button and you watch, see if it works or not.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no reason to do anything else.
True. I'm on my tablet all day. I got my Cintiq next to me. I got an iPad. I got the Surface. So wherever I go, I got something I can work with. Another question from Rick. What was your greatest gag that got cut, but you still think was a good gag? Ooh, nice question.
Yeah. Well, all right. So every once in a while I should say every once in a while, it's constantly on The Walking Dead. Now that we've gone through 10 seasons, how do you kill a slow zombie, a walker, in a way that we've never seen before? So I'll often be in a meeting and they'll say, the director has to go. He said, when I come back, have a couple ideas for me for new walker kills. And there was one, I was working with Nicotero on an episode this past season, and it was right at the beginning of season 10 when there's a big forest fire. And of course there's really no water. They had little spray tanks, but mostly it was buckets of sand and shovels and big rubber platters that they would smack on things to try to put out the fire. And so he walked out saying, give me 2 new ideas for kills when I come back. So I thought, well, I'm going to use those sand buckets. So one idea I came up with was one of the big guys, Jerry, coming up with 2 sand buckets and swinging them and crushing a head so it would explode. And the other was taking a sand bucket, swinging over and crushing the head down into the body. And Greg laughed out loud when he saw both of them. Oh my God, these are great. They decided not to do the 2 crushing the head because he said the timing, because the heads are expensive and time consuming. They were afraid that they wouldn't hit it right. One would hit first. So production wise, that would be potentially a time waster, but crushing down on top of the head was easy because it's just one bucket coming down. So I really want to see the squish. We never got to see that, but in the episode, they do the crushing straight down on the head, and I loved it.
That's great. We're gonna wrap up in a few, but I wanna ask you. I always like to ask this as one of my last questions.
Yeah.
Has there been anything that you haven't worked on that you want to work on, or anything like maybe if you have created your own, like a production that you want to create? What do you got? Anything in your mind going on?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I want to get into directing more bigger budget things. So that's on my list, and it was going great until this freaking COVID hit. So that kind of put a pause on everything I was working towards. But that'll happen. Yeah, but I've not worked on a Marvel movie. I really want to work on a Marvel movie or one of their new series. Their new series look amazing. I've worked on a lot of DC series,
Mhm.
you know, between Black Lightning and Doom Patrol, a couple others. So I've been doing those. I love them. I'm going to keep doing them. But I want to work on a Marvel movie. So that's my next. I keep having to set new goals. Like, you know, it's like I wanted to work on The Walking Dead when I moved here to Atlanta, and I landed the show 2 months before I moved. So, which was great. It was a great way to move here, and here I'm on the biggest show on TV. You know, so now it's more goals. So Marvel, that's my next.
Just out of curiosity, with the Marvel movie, what is it you want to do? You want to be the story artist? Do you want to direct? What is it that you want to do for Marvel?
Well, story artist first. You know, they don't know me from Adam on directing, so you know, I would never step in on directing something like that. Some of the other shows that I've been working on, there is a possibility, so that'll get my feet into that bigger arena. So I know the steps I need to take.
Okay, that's fantastic. I mean, you got your goals, you go for them. I love to hear that. You've been doing it since you were 12 years old, man. I mean, that is a long career, and you're not stopping. I mean, it sounds like you don't sleep much.
No, I don't. But you don't want to when you have so much fun with what you're doing. And in fact, one of the things I just started this last couple of days, I've got a few days in between productions right now. So I started storyboarding some of the scenes from my memoir, from Attacked. So the very last chapter of the book has to do with the last time someone tried to bully me and how I spun it on them. And I've ever since, literally since the day it happened, I've thought about how I would re-envision it. And it's actually exactly what happened, but I always saw it literally like watching a movie. So I'm storyboarding it right now. I just finished earlier today. I finished my rough pass, and now I'm starting to go through and do the cleanup. So
that's
and it's so fun. Yeah,
that is fantastic. I hope to see that one day.
It'll be on my book site. I'm going to put it up as one of those extra bonuses for people to take a look at.
That's fantastic. Well, I gotta say, and I know I say this a lot, but it's always true. I get so inspired talking to other artists and other creatives, and it's just been so fun to learn about your career. Well, I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface on a lot. That like I need to have you back.
Hey, anytime. This is fun, man. I've been having a great time with you. So
I'm very happy you're having a good time. This, like, I don't know. There's like I could just do a whole thing on, you know, being a story, or just a whole thing about your books, because we'd even talk about your expression books, which seem to be some of your most popular. Do you want to give them a little pitch before we?
Yeah. So facial expressions, I don't have one next to me, or I would pop it up. But you can find them on my site at Mark Simon Books, or just look up expressions in my name. There's 3 different versions of it, and expressions are photo reference books for artists. Doesn't matter what you do. Each one has around 50 models of varying ages and nationalities, and I photographed them, each model, from every angle, low angles, high angles, all the way around the head, holding a variety of expressions. So a big open mouth yell, what does that look like? Profile, 3/4, 1/4.
Yeah.
And the hats and headgear, skulls, photographic phonemes, straight on and profile. There's a huge amount of resources in there, and those are a series of books that originally I put together for my artists at my studio, and as I was finishing up, I thought, we're not the only ones who need this. And I actually had multiple publishers bidding against each other for those books, and I finally went with Watson Guptill. They've done a great job with it. So there's 2 print versions and 1 ebook. The 3rd edition is ebook only. That's on Amazon, and it's everyone who didn't fit in the first 2. But there's, in fact, one of the cool things in both the kids version and the 3rd edition, there's age progression. As an artist, it's fascinating where you see the same person at different ages, so you can see how the face changes as they get older. It's really cool to look at.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
that sounds like a book I need in my collection. So.
Dude, you don't have them?
I don't. I gotta get it. I told you all I own right now is your storyboard, but you've just sold me on at least 3 books tonight.
Well, look at it this way. How tired of you of drawing your own face in the mirror?
I don't know. I kind of like looking at this, but
all right.
No, but I get you. I actually pulled out some reference material online today when I was today was a day off from my day job because we had bad weather up here, and I just said, you know what, I haven't just had a practice day where I just, remember how to draw eyes and hands. And so I was pulling up reference photos and just drawing today. So that would have been a great book for me to have, though, your reference photos.
Yeah, in fact, one or two of the editions even has extreme close-ups of eyes and ears and mouths. So all different shapes. Yeah, that's cool.
That's fantastic. Well, I want to thank you again for hanging out with me for this hour. I really did have a great time. I'd love to have you back. I'm going to just throw you backstage for a minute, do a little wrap up. And so is there anything else you'd like to say before I throw you backstage?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks, Joe and Rick and everyone else Carl, everyone else who's been watching. In fact, Rick just said, I just rebought the digital expression book. Thank you. But yeah, it's been fun. Look forward to seeing all you guys. Please check out my memoir, Attacked. I'm really proud of it. It's a great story. Enjoy it. And thanks everyone. Good seeing you.
Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you in a moment. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in tonight. I really had a lot of fun. As Joe said, such an inspiring interview tonight. Thank you, guys. You're very welcome. I mean, I was looking forward to this since I started speaking with Mark. Like I said, I've been a fan of his book, Storyboard, that I used as a textbook when I taught storyboarding years ago at an online school. So I think that's a great book you should have. His expressions book and The Attack. Just go on his website, Mark Simon Books, which is down below. You can see his storyboard stuff on storyboard-east.com and connect with him on linkedin.com/IN Mark A. Simon. All right, guys. Next week, I'm sorry because I always mess up this name. We're gonna have Kyle Carrozza, who was a storyboard artist on a few things, but he's the creator of the cartoon The Mighty Magisword that was on Cartoon Network for a little bit. I believe it had a lot of web viewings too. So thanks again, guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Like always, you can find me at getintoon.net, both on Facebook and on my website, getintoon.net. You can follow me on Instagram and YouTube at Michael Gracia. And if you want to support me on patreon.com/Michael Gracia. Good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back next week with Kyle. Have a great night.